Hello, this is part 3 of our comparative Bible study on Jesus attending the Passover after he was baptized by John the Baptist, but before John the Baptist was put in prison. During this part, we'd like to discuss the aftermath of Jesus expelling the temple merchants. Overall, this is our 28th New Testament Bible study. During the last Bible study, we discussed how Jesus attended the Passover in Jerusalem. And when he went inside the temple, he found merchants who may have been selling things that they were allowed to sell for sacrifices, but nevertheless they were selling them inside the temple. And Jesus drove them out of the temple and said, "Take these things hence, make not my Father's house an house of merchandise." During this Bible study, I would like to discuss the hypothesis that although Jesus may have upset some people in cleansing the temple, they had no cause of action against him because they could not find any fault in him because what he did was just. Now, from the context, I think we could say at the very least Jesus did not like them inside the temple. As a comparison, with the original tabernacle in the wilderness, only certain people were allowed to go in certain areas. For example, inside the first veil, the holy place, only priests were allowed to go into there. And inside the Holy of Holies, the second veil, only the high priest could go in there, and that was only once a year. There were also certain rules for who could be near the altar and who was allowed to touch these holy objects when they moved them from place to place. In bringing this example up, I'm not saying that the merchants were near the altar or near the Holy of Holies, but I am saying that the Jewish people of Jesus' day were aware that the holy place, the tabernacle, the temple, needed to be treated with a certain kind of honor. Now, regarding merchants, I believe we have a similar situation regarding merchants selling things on the Sabbath day in the book of Nehemiah. There, Nehemiah the governor discovered people working and bringing things into Jerusalem on the Sabbath day to sell things, profaning the Sabbath day. As a solution, Nehemiah shut up the gates of Jerusalem on the Sabbath day. As a result, the merchants and the sellers of the products could not get into Jerusalem and they had to stay outside. And they did this a couple of times, and then Nehemiah threatened them not to even try it again. So just as Nehemiah was sanctifying the Sabbath day by preventing merchants from selling inside Jerusalem on the Sabbath day, it doesn't seem to be a far stretch for the Jews to sanctify the temple by not allowing merchants to sell inside the temple. During the last Bible study, we discussed how Jesus will later bring up Isaiah 56 in that the temple is supposed to be a house of prayer. So this house of worship, this house of prayer, this place where people were to go to worship and pray to God, potentially was being taken over and becoming a place of business just like any other place in the world. Just like in Nehemiah's day, the Sabbath was being taken over just like any other day of the week. I'm just offering this as a plausible explanation, especially given that they were still under the Old Testament Mosaic law at this time. As a quick aside and reminder, this event that occurred here in the Gospel of John after Jesus was baptized, but before John the Baptist was put in prison, early in Jesus' earthly ministry, is a separate and distinct event from the other accounts of Jesus cleansing the temple before he was crucified that are recorded in the other three Gospels. And some commentaries have noted that this early cleansing of the temple is a fulfillment of Malachi chapter 3. As we mentioned in New Testament Bible Study 18, John the Baptist is the messenger mentioned in this first verse who is preparing the way. And it's neat because this passage appears to state that Jesus would suddenly come to the temple, which is what has happened here. He's been baptized by John the Baptist, and now he's suddenly come to the temple, and he's cleansing the temple. Therefore, it seems appropriate that this would be one of the first things that Jesus did during his earthly ministry. And Jesus' disciples, who at that time could have been Peter, Andrew, Philip, and Nathanael, remembered the Bible verse, "The zeal of thine house hath eaten me up," which is a quote from Psalm 69. "For the zeal of thine house hath eaten me up, and the reproaches of them that reproach thee are fallen upon me." As another quick aside, the underlying Greek word for zeal here, according to Strong's Concordance, is also translated as indignation, jealousy, and envy. As I looked at how this word is used in the rest of the New Testament, sometimes it appears to be a positive, sometimes it appears to be a negative. An example of a positive can be found in 2 Corinthians chapter 11, where it speaks of godly jealousy. An example of a negative can be found in James chapter 3, where it speaks of bitter envying. The words translated here as jealousy, envying, and zeal are all the same underlying Greek word, zelos. Obviously, if anyone is capable of godly jealousy, it would be the Lord Jesus, who was perfect. Okay, let's move back to the main text for how the Jews responded. Picking up in verse 18, "Then answered the Jews and said unto him, What sign shewest thou unto us, seeing that thou doest these things?" At this point in time in Jesus' ministry, I believe he did not have a very big following like he did later in his ministry that would intimidate the Jews from doing anything. This seems to be evidence to me that Jesus did not do anything worthy of any crime, because the Jews did not try to apprehend him. They did not create a riot or a ruckus. They only asked Jesus what sign he could show them. If Jesus had created an unlawful ruckus inside the temple, it seems that they could have done something about it. For example, even in the Roman world, a town clerk at Ephesus in Acts chapter 19 refused to take action against Christians because they were neither robbers of churches nor yet blasphemers, and this is despite the entire town being in a great uproar. So conversely, if they were robbers of churches or blasphemers, action could have been taken. And later in the book of Acts, the Apostle Paul, among other things, was accused of bringing a Greek into the temple and polluting it, and the Jews got all stirred up and ran together and took Paul and drew him out of the temple and attempted to kill him. So it does not appear that Jesus had done something bad here, or else maybe something similar would have happened to him. Could it be that the Jewish people at this time knew that merchants should not be in the temple, but were looking the other way? But when Jesus, this apparent newcomer, expels them from the temple, the best they can do is make a snide comment questioning his legitimacy. Let's compare this response from earlier in Jesus' ministry to responses later in his ministry. In Matthew 21, when the Lord Jesus rides into Jerusalem on a donkey prior to his crucifixion, that first day he cleansed the temple. Then, the scribes and chief priests only challenged Jesus on what the people were saying about him. They didn't say anything to him about cleansing the temple. The Gospel of Mark also notes that Jesus went to the temple the first day, and both Gospels report that Jesus went to Bethany that night. But the Gospel of Mark also notes that Jesus cleansed the temple on day 2. I currently believe that Jesus cleansed the temple both on the first and second day. John Gill's exposition of the entire Bible reports similarly. As a result of this cleansing on day 2, we're told in Mark chapter 11:18, "And the scribes and the chief priests heard it, and sought how they might destroy him, for they feared him, because all the people was astonished at his doctrine." So in these events at the end of Jesus' earthly ministry, it was not because Jesus had broken the law, it was because they feared Jesus, because the people listened to his doctrine. Similarly, in Luke 19, we're told, "And he taught daily in the temple, but the chief priests and the scribes and the chief of the people sought to destroy him, and could not find what they might do, for all the people were very attentive to hear him." So in all these instances of Jesus cleansing the temple, it does not appear that he had done anything wrong or there was any cause of action against him. Instead, he was actually improving the temple by cleansing it. Thank you for your time. Lord willing, maybe we'll have another Bible study in the future.